Welcome to this edition of truthwork.com. I'm your host, Makoto Miyazaki, and today I'd like to introduce you to one of the other faces of our truthwork.com family, Makoto Miyazaki. This is his story. I was born to a typical Japanese salaryman's family in 1969. When I was in elementary school, my mother suddenly decided that she wanted to go to church, but no one in my family was a Christian or had even been to a church before. Still, we all went. My mom was the first one to accept Jesus. However, it took me almost 10 years to decide to be baptized. I quite naturally accepted that God exists, but didn't think that I could choose to be a Christian without first knowing what other religions taught. I wanted to make sure it was the truth. Throughout my long church life, I always knew that God was leading and helping me. Since I was a child, I was always sickly and weak, so the fact that I survived it all was God's blessing. Through many people, I already knew that God cared for me. Despite knowing all this, I was always procrastinating. The situation that finally made me decide to be baptized was the ordeal of university exams. I wanted to study engineering, and so took many grueling entrance exams at various schools all across Japan. Actually, I took 9 in all. But out of all those exams, the only ones I passed were both for school in my hometown of Sapporo, and both for architecture. Even a thick-headed guy like me could see that this was really clearly God's leading. The way I saw it, knowing that God loved and was protecting me all this time, but continuing to reject Him, was just plain rude. I felt like a love thief, knowing how much God loved me and accepting His help, but never saying thank you. I knew it was very arrogant, so I took this opportunity to be baptized. However, I thought if I already believed, then baptism was just going to be like a ceremony. But really, after this day, my life changed very dramatically. Up until that time, I had always kept a comfortable distance from responsibilities at church. But the next year, I went to Indonesia as part of a youth missions team. Throughout college, I spent all of my spare time working at the church with our church's first ever youth pastor, teaching Sunday school classes, arranging concerts, and working odd jobs as needed. I had always wanted to be a Japanese comic or manga artist, but until that time, it was simply just because I liked to draw. I was a fool like this. But then my identity changed. Now I wanted to become a comic artist to let people know about the gospel. Right after graduation, I worked as a foreman for a large construction company. Actually, I decided early on that in order to be a professional manga artist in the future, I should choose the hardest work I could to learn how the real world works, and to get a real world mentality that's often lacking in young manga artist wannabes. I determined to only work for 2 years before pursuing my manga career. Not long after I quit, through God's mysterious leading, I became the chief assistant for a very famous manga artist in Tokyo. However, after just 2 short years, the hectic pace of a manga artist's life caught up with me, and one day I passed out at work and was hospitalized from overworking. I tried to return to work, but the after effects made it impossible for me to continue this job, and so I had to leave my big life in Tokyo to come back to small-town Sapporo. The next year was a bitter one, because I could only get up for about 3 hours each day before the vertigo would kick in and have me back on my back again. I became depressed and felt like my dreams of becoming a comic artist were disappearing before my eyes. However, an amazing thing happened. The editor of a large publishing company got his hands on a doodle that I had sketched and given to a friend back when I was an assistant in Tokyo. They called and asked me if I would like to be a professional comic artist, and so I was. Many people wrote me fan letters. I remember one in particular from a guy who said that after reading my comic, he decided not to kill himself. I got an opportunity to have my own series, but just when I decided to go for it, I realized that my body was too weak to keep up with the strenuous pace required by a typical Japanese comic magazine, after all. Hello again, depression. I felt bound by my body's weak physical condition, with the loss of balance and resulting dizziness, chronic low blood pressure, and a nerve condition in the right side of my heart. It was devastating to realize that I couldn't work a normal job anymore, and would probably never be able to provide for a family of my own. Then, after some years, one day I went to an English worship service where I met my wife. From God's leading, I could get married. Even me. Now many things have changed. God has shown me a job that I can do with all my might. I can live and work as a missionary, alongside my wife, despite my physical limitations. Basically, I am a behind-the-scenes character who doesn't like to stand out very much. Instead, I spend my energies and talents making this video blog, and preparations for Delena's concerts and CDs, recordings, and various kinds of missionary work. The life I have been given is completely different from anything I ever would have imagined. The way God has continually cared for me is so amazing, and now I am so thankful that I can work as a missionary. As God begins to make a way for us to live as full-time missionaries, it is my hope, even if I have to do it slowly, to write a manga that shows God's glory. To us human beings, God's plan often looks full of unnecessary turns, but I can see that everything in my life has had a purpose. This is a message I want to share with the world. God is great. Hallelujah. Whew. So what'd you think, Tom? No, I don't think so. I think his heart's just acting up again this week. We hope you'll keep that in your prayers, along with this ministry, and let us know what we can be praying for you about. Until next time, this is truthwork.com, saying catch you later.